Okay, continuing from the part we have left, now we came to the definition of the caregiver. So the caregiver means any person, including parents and the other family members, legal guardian also, who with or without the payments provides. Okay, it can be person can be taking payment in cash and or any medium or without any payments also, providing of such care, support or assistance to person with disabilities. So person with disability also will be defined later. So he will be called caregiver, and there are certifying authorities. There are communication means. So very important. Communication includes means and format of communications, languages used in communicating, displaying of certain text, braille itself is tactile communications, signs, large print, accessible media, written part, audio, video, visual display. These are sign language, plain language, human reader, augmentative and alternative modes and accessible information and communication technology all are communication under the Act. And what is the discrimination as defined in this Act? Discrimination in relation to disability means any distinction, exclusion, restriction on the basis of disability. The disability has to be main cause of such discrimination, which is of the purpose and effect of impairing or nullifying the recognition. That means it has some impairment, it causes, it nullifies the recognition, enjoyment thereof, exercise on the equal basis with others of all human rights. So human rights is what? Human rights are certain basic unalienable rights. So you will go Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993 defines the human rights for Indian perspective, and the fundamental freedom in political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field, and that include all form of discrimination and denial on of reasonable accommodation. So we will be discussing also in this act what is reasonable accommodation. Also very important to understand. So there is concept in L, like section 2, clause L, which says about high support. What is the high support? It means an intensive support. So we want to say there is a something called base. So it is not base, it is advanced than that. This means an intensive support. Physical, it can be physical support, it can be psychological support, and otherwise also, which may be required by a person with benchmark disability. So first we have to understand what is person with benchmark disability. Earlier 1995 Act of RPWD, now PWD Act, Equal Opportunity and Protection of Rights Act of 1995, was talking about something called percentage or mild level, moderate level, severe level disability. Now we are introducing by this Right to Person with Disabilities Act of 2016 the concept of benchmark disability for daily activity. That means for daily activity, a person with benchmark disability needs intensive support. It can be physical support that the person has to be, one person has to be physically give support. Psychologically, they need counseling of intense kind, like emergency psychiatry kind of, or to take independent and informed decision. So some of the independent decision and the informed decision they have to take for their treatment and other purposes. So and also to take facilities, sorry, not for treatment, that this is Right to Person with Disability Act. So decision to access facilities and participating in all area of life, which all, like for pursuing their education they need might need physical and psychological level of support, for employment, family and community life and treatment and receiving any therapy or treatment. So in this act, like inclusive education word has been used. So like India has a Right to Education Act, Compulsory and Free Education Act, and there is Article 21 capital A of the Constitution of India, which makes its fundamental right to receive elementary education. So same concept there also, inclusive education is there. So here also inclusive education we want to give. That means a system of education wherein student with or without disability, that means there should be no discrimination on the basis of disability. They will learn together, and the system of teaching and learning is suitably adapted. That means if there is braille, it helps facilitate So it is adopted to meet the learning need of different type of student with disabilities. So there can be sign language, other means which facilitates their studies. And there is important definition only we will be covering. There is section 2, capital R, clause R, which says defines the person with benchmark disability. It means a person with not less than 40% of the specified disability. So we'll come to the schedule also in last part of my presentation of this RPWD Act, and which will be covered because not in one two part it can be covered with this because this act is used. So in that schedule of disability, specified disabilities are there. So 40% of that specified disability, if not defined in measurable term by the government or the authorities, then has to be 40%. Some measurable terms has to be there, including a person with disability where has been defined in the measurable term by the certifying authority. So some authority is designated and as a certifying authority, they will be certifying some disability as a 40%. Any condition they can declare it to be 40%. Okay, there is a definition of person with disability in this act. In this act, person with disability mean a person with long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment. We want to say there can be physical kind of disability, psychological, mental kind of disability, intellectual disabilities. Uh, so some sensory impairment. So sense, there are five sense. So any of the sensory impairment which in interaction with barrier. So we have defined earlier what is barrier. So when these disabilities, these physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, like World Health Organization has clearly defined now what is impairment, what is disability, and what is handicap. So when these impairment interacts with the barrier, and which results into hinders the full and effective participation of the person in the society equally with other, that mean those person which who are called divyangjan can be called as a person with disabilities for the purpose of this act. And there is definition of person with disability having high support need under section 2 clause T, which says the person with benchmark disability is certified and who needs the high support. Okay, benchmark disability person. So first to specify disability, one has to fall into the benchmark disability. Then out of them, whoever certified as a need of high support need by the certifying authority is the person with disability with having high support need. So another important definitions in this act is section 2 clause Y, which says about reasonable accommodation. That means necessary and appropriate modification, okay, adjustments without imposing a disproportionate or undue burden in the particular case. Okay, resource strain should also not be there, and it has to be necessary and appropriate modification that you might have seen under the accessibility code. Also now buildings are having that access to the person with disability, so this is necessary for them facilitate their entry into the buildings and the place of education. Like if your institution has fourth floor, fourth floor, fifth floor, or there are some ministerial level meetings are there where one of the stakeholder is person with disability, so the building also has to be accessible to them. So this adjustment and without imposing a disproportionate and undue burden in the particular case to ensure to person with disability the enjoyment and exercise of right. Okay, we have to ensure by that modification, adjustment in the environment. So the person with disability enjoys and exercises their right of equality, uh, or other rights also equally with others. Like the discrimination has been removed, has to be removed by giving reasonable accommodation, like the positive discrimination of the right to equality under the constitution says. And Section 2, Clause Z A says rehabilitation. What is rehabilitation? Rehabilitation is says refers to the process. It is the process. Rehabilitation is process, ongoing process. Okay, which aims at enabling person with disability to attain and maintain. So one is to attain, and if they have attained, to maintain that. So optimal physical, sensory, intellectual, psychological environment or social function level. So, they are certain enabling provisions which attain, like help the PWD person with disability to attain, maintain this level. Okay, and special employment exchange. There are employment within the employment exchange. There will be special employment exchange created under the act. So, uh, universal design ZE. Section 2, Clause ZE talks about the design of products, environments, program, and services usable by all the people to the greatest extent possible without the need of adaptation and or specialized design, and shall apply to assistive devices including advanced technology, particular group of person with disability. So that design they have talked about. So we have completed the chapter 1, which is preliminary. So in this part we have covered major definitions. If we like focus on those definitions and keep that in mind, we can easily understand the Right of Person with Disabilities Act, what actually the government is entitled to do. Okay, chapter 2 talks about right and entitlement under the act. So clearly it is said that the appropriate government, so I would want to say, if it is center government, center government, for center, with the state level, the state government is the appropriate government. They have to ensure that person with disability enjoy the right to equality. Right to equality, Article 14, which involves within itself equal protection of law and equality before law. So we are more focused on equal protection of law, and also state is doing positive discrimination by enabling the person with disability to compete with others and life with dignity and respect, okay, which are the fundamental human rights for his or her integrity, equality with others. So that is the government's responsibility. Also, the government responsibility is to take step to utilize the capacity of the person with disability by providing appropriate environment. It talks about enabling the person with disability. Okay, enabling the person with disability to contribute, and their capacity has to be taken care, utilized by giving them environment to further prosper. And there is a negatively worded section third, clause 3 talks, no person with disability shall be discriminated on the ground of disability. So, as like Article 14 word, this also word is there. The person with disability shall not be discriminated on the ground of disability. Then act or omission. So, if that is they have been discriminated, then the onus lies on the authority discriminating that this whatever act they have done, or the duty they was there, they have failed in that. This was proportionate mean of achieving a legitimate aim, mean lawful aim. So this is onus is totally on person discriminating. Okay. Also, fourthly, say no person shall be deprived of his or her personal liberty on the ground of the disability. So Constitution also provides that protection to all on any ground. Now, Right of Person with Disability Act specifically saying that disability cannot be ground of discrimination, and person cannot be deprived of his or personal liberty only on the ground of he or she has certain disabilities. And also reasonable accommodation, providing reasonable accommodation as defined under the act, and also is responsibility of the government. And section 4th of this act says that government and the local authorities shall have to take the measure that women and children with disability enjoy their right equally with others. That means this is specific, like Article 15, Clause 3 of the Constitution of India is there. Similar way for women and children with disability, there is this is positively like it is giving certain kind of like added responsibility on the government. And also they have to ensure that all children with disabilities shall have a right on equal basis, and they have to like able to express their views, because article 19(1) a is there. Indian constitution says freedom of speech and expression. So if this is matter with regard to their all matter affecting them, when the matters concerns them, they should have voice, and they have like government has to provide them support, and like whatever their age wise requirement is there, and disability requirement is also there, so that they can freely express their views. And section 5 says the person with disability have right to live in community. Okay, there's a like right of community life is there. So the discrimination it is touching, so the society should not discriminate, and he should have right, person with disability has. And okay, housing need, other needs also it says. Okay, section 6 talks about that government should take measures to protect person with disability from being subjected to torture, cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment. So as we know, UN conventions are there for prevention of the torture, cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment. That government has that responsibility in the international uh, among the state party also. But here it is making statutory right on the part of person with disability and directive on the part to the state government or the central government that they should take measure. They should be proactive to protect the person with disability, and any kind of torture, what is third degree, any treatment which is extrajudicial, is not authorized, any cruel, like whatever is like intolerable, inhuman, like uh, and degrading, like with discriminate. So these all like protection against those all things has to be done by the government. And uh, section 6 clause 2 is very important also, because many of the research institute are involved who are researching on the subject of person with disability. So there is a no person with disability shall be subject to research, they said. That means no person with disability, Divyangjan, will be subject to any research without. So what are the requirement to make or ask permission or hold it legally right? That his or her free and informed consent. Like one has to adopt, like ask for the free consent. It should not be pressurized. Like also informed consent has to be there. That means explained everything in detail. What is the consequence of giving this kind of consent, and what will be effect on these the person per se. So what is the grievance redressal mechanism if there is some grievance due to this giving consent some effect? So what is the mechanism? Obtained through accessible modes, means and format of communication. So if the modes has to like varies. If the person is comfortable, he can give this informed consent in piece of paper. If not, then accessible modes, means and format of communication, that will depend upon the disability. And also the prior permission is needed of committee for research on disability. Okay. The government's responsibility is to constitute committee for research on disability, state government as well as central government, in which the composition of committee also they have said that okay, person with disability has to be member of those committees, and certain registered organization is there who are working with the person with disabilities, so they also have to be member of those committee for research on disability, so that the concern of the person with disability also comes to light when giving such kind of permissions. Okay, so section 7 morely talks about that Government should protect the person with disability with all form of abuses, violences, exploitation to prevent the same. Okay, that means exploitation we know, like a fundamental right is also there, the right of protection from the exploitation, section 24 of the Constitution of India. So also from all form of abuse and the violence, everybody has a right to be protected. But the person with disability in this statute has been given statutory rights, and the government has to take measures. Mean we want to like hold the government accountable and ask the government to take proactive steps and measures to protect the person with disability. For this, what all is needed, they have inaugurated in Section 7, Clause 1, which are four ways given in this act, like taking cognizance of the incident of abuse. Cognizance, as it's a legal word. Taking cognizance, who can take cognizance? If someone goes to police. So there is a code of criminal procedure of 1973 which talks about cognizance of offences. So what is offense? Offense means punishable by law. What is the cognizance mean? Uh, Accruing the cause of action actually. So we know there are certain offences which are non-cognizable, which are some of the offences are cognizable. So cognizance mean taking cognizance. That mean having this like recording that of incident of abuse, violence, exploitation, and to provide legal remedy available against such incident. Suppose some kind of abuse, violence, exploitation is happening against the person with disability, then government should take measures. So government can take through its agencies, because government is state. Article 12 of Constitution of India. So state has its own machinery to work. So state can use the police, which is part of bureaucracy. So they can use the police, which has been given power under the Criminal Procedure Code of taking cognizance, registering the FIR, First Information Report, under Section 154 of the CRPC. And then in that case, everything has to be done in consequence to the registration of the FIR. So investigation has to be done. If there is a need, arresting of such person. If arresting of the person is required, provision of the bail and bond also have to be followed, and also the protection of the victim. So all these things has to be done, and also B says that taking step for avoiding such incident. So like many act I have discussed in domestic protection of women from domestic violence act of 2005 also, there are certain provisions of avoiding the incident like protection orders. So that all orders can be passed protecting the person with disability in this statute, and the government can prescribe the procedure for reporting, like reporting of the incident, how to report, to whom to go, and also to take step to rescue. Okay, some of the person with disability has been discriminated, abused, violence has been meted out to them. So the state government has to take proactive step to rescue them from that exploitative workplace, building, or any place. Protect them from that attacks, and also rehabilitate them. If they are victim of such incident, rehabilitate them. Then it's complex, like service provider in the DP Act where there. So there here also registered agencies are there. So for the purpose of rehabilitation of such person with disability, they are operating. So the help can be taken. Okay. So and also there is a not only this like more of proactive steps also be taken. Proactive steps like we want to do through this video, like creating awareness among the people about the provision of this right to person with disabilities act. What the Parliament of India want to is intended to do by passing of such legislation, and also what are the right of person with disability. If we will like educate the community, spread the awareness, and also making available information to the public, Like many researcher can be part of public who want to research with the person with disability. So educating them about what is the needed, like there is something called committee for person with disability. Okay, committee has been constituted where the person with disability or the registered NGOs are member. So, and the ethics part also we have to make them understand what is the ethical clearance and other. So, these all is responsibility of the appropriate government to take measure. And there is also enabling provision in this section, which says that if any registered organization is there, registered means it can be registered under the Society Registration Act, it can be registered under the Companies Act or any other legislation for that case. Mm. So they have a reason to believe, mean their suspicion is there, or there are like information, credible information is there that any act of abuse, violence, or exploitation is likely to be committed against the person with disability, or is already has been committed, or is continuing that. So they may give information about it to executive magistrate. So we have to understand what is executive magistrate. As section 6 of the criminal code of criminal procedure of 1973 talks about what is classes of out of the classes of code, executive magistrate are those magistrates who have executive power. Like example, the executive magistrate are district magistrate or district collector, the SDMs, subdivisional magistrates. So these all are class who comes from the public service commissions recruitment, like Indian Administrative Services, one of the All India services. And they can be member of that services, or they can be interned from the public service commissions. So whose local jurisdiction has to be there, like where the incident has occurred or is likely to occur, or is continuing to occur. So any executive magistrate can be intimated by such any person or registered organization. Then further, the process explained in this section that executive magistrate, when he receives such information, he shall take, shall mean must. There is no other option. They shall take the immediate step. Immediate mean within the span of time, and to stop or prevent it occurrence. Like if it's occurring, to stop that from occurring or preventing its occurrence. In future, it is going to likely to have, and there is a credible information that it will happen. So they can prevent it from occurrence, like proactively by going on the site, or everything, doing everything possible, or deputing some of the officer, or pass such order as he deems fit for the protection. Okay, the order can be passed. As I said, the DB Act also talks about no certain kind of orders. So the same way orders they have, like these orders are for fulfillment of certain purposes. Which are the purpose? One purpose is to rescue the victim of such act, authorizing the police or any organization working for PWD to provide for safe custody, custodial needs. Okay, in safety, place of safety actually, rehabilitation of such person. So they can direct to any like district social welfare officer can be directed. Any non-governmental organization working with the person with disability can be directed. Any institute which is working for their rehabilitation can be like directed. Any centers are working and receiving funds from the government can be directed, or any non-governmental organization can also be directed if they have sufficient funds. So also for providing protective custody to person with disability. If person with disability like desires that he can be attacked in future, so providing the protective custody where the person is safe. So that kind of responsibility also executive magistrate has, and he can pass an order in that behalf. Also to provide maintenance of such person with disability. So what is maintenance? Many times physical monetary help is needed. So that all order can be passed by the competent executive magistrate. And further, subclause 4 says about any police officer who receives a complaint or otherwise come to know of the abuse, violence, or exploitation toward any person with disability. So there is a duty on the part of police officer. Police officer, as we know, police has been created. So in all India services, Indian police services is one of the all India services, and there are hierarchy. Police hierarchy is there. It starts with the constable post, and it goes. If it's a commissionerate system, it will go in, like, it start gazetted rank with the assistant commissioner of police, then it can go further to the deputy commissioner of police, and further it can go to the extent of uh, like additional commissioner of police, joint commissioner of police, and special commissioner of police, and the commissioner of police. And further it, if it is a directorate system, it can same way started with the assistant superintendent of police, then deputy superintendent of police, then superintendent of police, then senior superintendent of police, director, DIG, they will say, Deputy Inspector General. Okay, and one of the Inspector General of Police, because there is no word used in the policing terminology, like only the word is Inspector General of Police, which is a legal word used, and one of them are DIGs, commissioners, or DGPs. For there can be assistant sub inspector, sub inspector of police. Then further it can be inspector of police, which is many times designated as the officer in charge of the station or the station house officer. So the word station house officer is not used. It is used like officer in charge of the police station in many legal provision. So any police officer, if he receives the complaint, one base information or complaint the police officer receives, or there is some knowledge can be from any source, input. So that abuse, regarding abuse, violence, exploitation happening with the person with disability, as we have defined earlier, so he shall inform the person who is aggrieved, me person with disability who has suffered that loss or the exploitation, violence, that his or her right to apply for protection, okay, to the executive magistrate. And they can give detail of the executive magistrate, who is this SDM, who is the district magistrate collectorate, what is the address of their office, how they can go, whether this place is accessible to them or not. So that kind of like awareness about the protection order they can apply. Also, nearest some social welfare organization, as said, NGO can be working for the their betterment. There can be some institution working for the rehabilitation of person with disability. So they can, like police officer can give detail of those particulars can be given, so that person with disability will be helped by that information. And also they said, further they said, the obligation on the part of police officer, which is very good. So the right of free legal aid, that means there is article 39 capital A of the Constitution of India, which says that there is entitlement of the free legal aid. So, the Parliament of India has enacted Legal Services Authority Act of 1987, and the person with disability is covered under Section 12, different criteria to receive free legal aid. So, the police officer has to inform the person with disability his right to have free legal aid, which means that there is a right to institute a case. Okay, the right to have free legal advice from the network. I said, because district level there is a district legal services authority, and the state level there is a state legal services authority. So there are high court level, there will be high court legal services committees. So they have to inform where they can receive the free legal aid actually, and the right to file a complaint under the proviso of that this act. In RPWD Act also there are offences has been given under this act, or there is any other act is like dealing with such an offense. So it is not necessary that the offense has to be covered under RPWD Act also. Within the Indian Penal Code also some provisions is there. So the police officer can inform the person with disability that they have a right to file a complaint. so complain to the police themselves, or they can if some offense is non-cognizable, so they can be referred to the magistrate. So these all provisions are there. So see, they have, like, Parliament of India, legislature in its wisdom has understood the connotation of giving such like wordings here, saying that police officer has duty. So they have clearly says that it is not relieving the police officer from their original duty of proceeding in accordance with the law. Just because there is a provision in the RPWD Act, they have explained everything. That doesn't uh, relieve them from doing something which is other acts are telling, like CRPC clearly tells. No, if there is information complaint, they have to proceed and try register the FIR. Then further from the FIR, they have to go to stage of investigation. So this is they have not relieved from that all responsibility if the information is credible of the cognizable offences. So we are morally concerned about cognizable offences as covered under Section 154 of the CRPC of 1973, and also further says that executive magistrate is finding that this whatever the act has happened with the person with disability which is alleged by them, or this behavior, okay, this is falling within the definition of, sorry, any of the offences as given under the Indian Penal Code or special or local laws, then the executive magistrate may forward the complaint. So it is committal, some kind of, like, executive magistrate can forward to the judicial or metropolitan magistrate. So there are judicial magistrate. If the area is metropolitan, so it will be metropolitan magistrate. So executive magistrate mean your district collector, district magistrate, sub-divisional magistrate can forward these complaint if they find that this any other offences are attracted under the IPC. So that complaint can be transferred to the judicial magistrate or the metropolitan magistrate who has a jurisdiction, local jurisdiction on of those area where the alleged incident is like complaint of. And further, the Section 8 talks about the person with disability shall have a equal protection and safety in situation of risk, armed conflict, humanitarian emergency, and natural disaster. So that means there are certain life-threatening situation because the person are not able, like there is some restrictions on their part of movement. Other restrictions are there due to circumstances beyond their control, but they should not be discriminated on that basis. So the person with disability have a right of equal protection and safety also. So there might be any risk condition. They have given some of the enumeration, right? Armed conflicts are there. Some armed conflict is there between the two army or those civil kind of war or other thing. Some humanitarian emergencies are there when human rights uh, and other issues has come, and natural disasters are there. So many of the time, because many state of India has faced in past also today also they are facing some natural disaster. So the person with disability should not be left behind. So they have given that equal protection and safety in the situation has to be done. So how one can ensure that, to say that there is a Disaster Management Act of 2005 enacted by the Parliament of India. This is also following the convention or Sendai framework. Many developments are there in this disaster management field also. So there are also Disaster Management Act creates certain bodies called National Disaster Management Authority at the center. There are State Disaster Management Authority in the state level. There are National Institute of Disaster Management at the national level has been created, and there is in district there is a DDMA. They will call District Disaster Management Authority under the in charge of the ADM or the district magistrate, who is the executive magistrate. So these authority has to take under section 8 clause 2 the measures which are appropriate to ensure that the person with disabilities are included in activities of disaster management. Okay, for the safety and protection. Okay, if there is any disaster management plan is there, they have to be included in that plan. Their need has to be said, so there has to be census coming sections. We will see like 8 clause 3 talks about section 8 clause 3 of this RPWD Act says that the DDMA, District Disaster Management Authority, which is constituted, has to maintain a records of detail of the person with disability in the district. So that means census has to be done. Census of the person with disability in the district. How many like populations of the person with disabilities, benchmark disabilities are there? Okay, then they have to take suitable measure to inform such person of any situation of risk to enhance the disaster preparedness. So information can be provided when there is data, there is contact detail. Of that's why the alert system has to be very much. So there is a role of the district disaster management authority to take that census and have a functional number, functional address where the person with disability are residing. They should have account of such disability, what kind of disability and what high support needs in the disaster situation they might need, because the act envisages that their right has to be protected so as to enhance the disaster preparedness. Okay, their preparedness of the disaster facing with disaster enhance. So these all exercise will result into enhancing. And also the authority engage in reconstruction activity. So many times disaster happens, so reconstruction has to be there. So mean the whole community's area of living which is destroyed by the natural disaster calamities unfortunately has to be rebuilt. So that situation of conflict, natural disaster, creates such a kind of atmosphere, so which has to be rebuilt. The community has to start their life again by building the structure. And state commissioner, okay, so state commissioner, they said person with disability also has certain commissioners now. Okay, so that they have to do in accordance to accessibility requirement of person with disability to the reconstruction. Like if they are building any building, so they have to provide the access to person with disability. The design of the building has to be like this. So we want to say that these provision are very like um, helpful. So we'll be continuing from section 9 because this is a big act. So in as I said that 1 to part it is very difficult to cover. So this is the part second. We have covered till section 8 of the Right to Person with Disability Act of 2016. I will continue with the deliberation. Thanks for connecting.